Hey guys, it's Tommy. I want to spend a few minutes just talking to you, if that's all right. I don't know about you, but when I think about my favorite epic adventure movies, they're never just about one hero. They're about a whole team of heroes who journey together and protect each other. Just like searching for the Infinity Stones, or going into the Upside Down, or even a creepy antique store to save Forky. Your journey through life and your faith can't be done alone. You need people to walk alongside you. On your journey of life and faith, you can't always choose what happens, but often you can choose who it happens with. You see, spending time with God is an important first step in knowing our Creator, but it's not the only step we need to take. If we want to make it on our own personal epic journey towards knowing and following Jesus, we need to think about the people we're doing life with, because other people have the power to impact our faith. I know I said that you can choose people you journey with, but maybe you disagree with that. Maybe you're thinking, no, I didn't choose my family, or I don't choose who I go or went to school with. I don't choose who lives in my neighborhood. I don't even have one friend I can count on, let alone several friends I could choose from. Or maybe you're thinking, if I had a choice, I would choose differently. And you're right, especially at a younger age. There's only so much you can control about your life and relationships. And I understand why you might feel powerless to choose the people in your life. Now, I know you can't make perfect friends out of thin air, and you can't snap your fingers and make the perfect family for yourself. You can't get new classmates, or right now, really any classmates, right? Or the teammates or the neighbors. But here's something you can do. You can choose to invest in a few great relationships, the kind of relationships that will help you move forward in your journey of knowing God. Proverbs is known as a book of wisdom, and it has something to say about this. You see, in Proverbs 12, it says that the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. And later in the next chapter, it says to walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Now, this isn't a revolutionary idea. Maybe you've heard the same idea said in other ways, like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Or you'll become more like the people you spend time with. You see, these pieces of wisdom are so well known because they're true. So if we become more like the people we surround ourselves with, and we want to get closer to Jesus, shouldn't we just surround ourselves with people who also want to get closer to Jesus? I have relationships with friends, mentors, and even family members whose faith has inspired or challenged me. And maybe most importantly, me seeing their faith has helped my faith grow. Now, in some ways, these relationships were an accident. I was fortunate to have crossed paths with them when I did. But in more important ways, these relationships were a choice. They were relationships I chose to invest in by picking up the phone, by getting together in person, and seeking out their wisdom. These relationships helped me to grow closer to Jesus in some pretty significant ways. But there was another type of relationship that helped me grow too. And this one might be a little surprising, given the scripture we just read. You see, I have friends that have never believed what I believe about Jesus. But even these relationships helped me to grow spiritually. These friends helped me to learn to get serious about praying for others and taught me how to talk about my faith. Whether or not this person chose to follow Jesus is not the purpose of this story. The purpose here is to show how this relationship changed me. Now, maybe you were expecting me to talk about how this relationship changed them for the better, but that's not what I wanted to share. Yes, I've grown closer to God because of my relationship with people who know God, but I've also grown closer to God because of my relationship with people who don't know God. You see, Jesus spent a lot of time with people who didn't believe in him. There were a lot of people who physically followed Jesus around, but they hadn't yet decided to follow him with their lives. And here's an example. In Mark chapter 2, verse 13, it says this: once again, Jesus went out beside the lake. A large crowd came to him, and he began to teach them. As he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," Jesus told him. And Levi got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. When the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with these tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners." You see, Jesus constantly spent time with sinners and people who made the religious leaders angry, and he tells us to do the same. Jesus didn't show up for dinner with a group of people by accident. His relationships with them were a choice. He sought them out on purpose, and he tells us to do the same. Of course, a major reason why we should spend time with people who don't know Jesus is so we can introduce them to Jesus. But again, today, that's not what I want to talk to you about. Today, I want us to think about the passage of scripture we've read so far today. Both of these passages clearly teach us that our relationships are a choice, not an accident. But these passages also seem, on the surface, to send very different messages. How do we make sense of these two seemingly opposite messages? How do we both surround ourselves with people who are following Jesus and spend time with people who aren't? How can both types of relationships help us to grow closer to God? Every relationship you have will impact your faith in some way. The question you need to answer is this: can this relationship help me grow closer to God or not? Right? So our relationships with other believers should help us to grow closer to God. But the question is, are they? Our relationship with people who don't believe in Jesus can also help us get closer to God, or they could do the opposite. Now, if you want to make it on this adventure of following Jesus, you're going to need people to join you on the journey. You can't control every relationship that comes your way, but you can choose, right, to pull back away from the ones that are leading you away from Jesus and invest even more in the ones that will help you grow. Because remember, your relationships are a choice, not an accident. I'd love to talk to you some more about this. We have a weekly Zoom meeting on Wednesdays at 6:30. The link is in the description down below. The password is TFF Next. Please jump in. I'd love to hear from you. Until then, I love your faces.